Hey guys, I'm Michael from eKids. Do you remember studying Deuteronomy 6:5?
You must love the Lord your God with all of your heart and your soul and your strength.
Deuteronomy 6:5.
And you must love the Lord your God with all of your heart and your soul and your strength.
Well, if you don't, let me read it to you. Deuteronomy 6:5 in my Bible right here. It says, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength." Again, that's Deuteronomy 6:5. You know, when I read the Old Testament, one thing I like to do is like to see these characters and think, well, did they love God with all of their heart? Did they love God with all of their soul? Did they love God with all of their strength? So we're going to study a new character for you today for the next few weeks, and her name is Ruth. Now, in this story, there are tons of characters, and we want to see if these characters loved God with all of their heart, all of their soul, and all of their strength. Oh, but also, while we're learning about new characters and learning new stories, there's something else that we need to see. To understand a story, you need to think about a few things. First, the characters. When you watch these stories, watch these videos, these cartoons, I want you to start thinking, who is in the story? So, characters, who? The next thing that's really difficult, but I want you to try to think about this, is the setting. The setting. The setting is where the story happens. So if you guys can start learning the characters and the setting, who and where, then the rest of the story will start making more sense. So let's work on a couple things. One, let's see if we can figure out who the characters are. Two, let's start thinking about where these characters are. And then finally, let's see if these characters love God with all of their heart, all of their soul, and all of their strength. All right, so check this out in Ruth. Here we go. This is Ruth chapter 1 from the Message Bible. Once upon a time, it was back in the days when judges led Israel, there was a famine in the land. A man from Bethlehem in Judah left his home to live in the country of Moab, he and his wife and 2 sons. The man's name was Elimelech. His wife's name was Naomi. His sons were named Mahlon and Chilion, all Ephrathites from Bethlehem and Judah, and they all went to the country of Moab and settled there. Elimelech died, and Naomi was left, she and her 2 sons. The 2 sons took Moabite wives. The name of the first wife was Orpah, the second Ruth. They lived there in Moab for the next 10 years, but when the 2 brothers, Mahlon and Chilion, died, now the woman was left without either her young men or her husband. One day, she got herself together, she and her 2 daughters-in-law, to leave the country of Moab and set out for home. She had heard that God had been pleased to visit his people and give them food. And so she started out from the place that she had been living, she and her 2 daughters-in-law with her, on the road back to the land of Judah. After a short while on the road, Naomi took her 2 daughters-in-law. "Go back, go home and live with your mothers, and may God treat you as graciously as you treated your deceased husbands and me. May God give each of you a new home and a new husband." She kissed them and they cried openly. They said, "No, we're going on with you to your people." But Naomi was firm. "Go back, my dear daughters. Why would you come with me? Do you suppose I still have sons in my womb who can become your future husbands? Go back, dear daughters, on your way, please. I'm too old to get a husband. Why, even if I said, 'There's still hope,' and this very night got a man and had sons, can you imagine being satisfied to wait until they were grown? Would you wait that long to get married again? No, dear daughters. This is a bitter pill for me to swallow, more bitter for me than for you. God has dealt me a hard blow." Again, they cried openly. Orpah kissed her mother-in-law goodbye, but Ruth embraced her and held on. Naomi said, "Look, your sister-in-law's going back to live with her own people and God's. Go with her. But Ruth said, "Don't force me to leave you. Don't make me go home. Where you go, I go. And where you live, I'll live. Your people are my people. Your God is my God. Where you die, I'll die. And that's where I'll be buried. So help me God, not even death itself is going to come between us." When Naomi saw that Ruth had her heart set on going with her, she gave in. And so the two of them traveled on together to Bethlehem. When they arrived in Bethlehem, the whole town was soon buzzing. Is this really our Naomi? And after all this time? But she said, "Don't call me Naomi, but call me bitter. The strong one has dealt me a bitter blow. I left here full of life, and God has brought me back with nothing but the clothes on my back. Why would you call me Naomi? God certainly doesn't. The strong one ruined me." And so Naomi was back, and Ruth the foreigner with her, back from the country of Moab. They arrived in Bethlehem at the beginning of the barley harvest.
All right, guys, so let's talk about those questions. First, who were the characters? Well, when I look here in Ruth chapter 1, I see that Naomi is a character. Naomi is Ruth's mom. So we have Naomi and Ruth. Well, not really her mom, her mother-in-law. And here's what I mean by mother-in-law. Ruth was married to one of Naomi's sons. So her sons are also characters. So you have Naomi, you have Ruth, and you have her sons. And that's pretty much the important characters that we have. Ruth, Naomi, and her sons. Okay, where are they? Well, it says right there in the first verse that they were in the country of Moab. Now, I don't exactly know where Moab is, and I know you don't either, but it seems like they're not in like Jerusalem, they're not in Israel, they're somewhere else, right? So they're living somewhere else. So what we see is that when Naomi's husband dies and when Ruth's husband dies, they end up moving somewhere else. So we're going to find out more about that. But another thing is that also Naomi had another daughter-in-law, and so this is what happens. Ruth decides to stay with Naomi, and then the other daughter-in-law decides to go away. So there we have some characters. We have a little bit of the setting, but now I want to know more about the other question. Do these characters love God with all of their heart, all of their soul, and all of their strength? Well, let's talk about it. See, we have Naomi, which she's just a woman who had moved away and was married, and now her husband dies and her sons die. Man, that's not really her fault. She didn't do anything wrong. That's a really tough thing to deal with. So we really don't see whether she's loving God with all of her heart, soul, and strength yet. But that's what we know about Naomi so far. Now Ruth, it seems like she's doing a really cool thing. She decides to stay with her mother-in-law to help her. And she wants to stay true to Naomi's God, which is, well, God. So is Ruth loving God with all of her heart, all of her soul, and all of her strength? Absolutely she is. So this is cool. We're seeing that yes, Naomi and Ruth have both gone through some really difficult things. Their husbands died, but they're staying friends with each other, and they're going to go and figure out the rest of the story together. Now, and at the end of this chapter, we see that Naomi and Ruth, they do go back to where Naomi's from. And so next week, we're going to see what happens in chapter 2. So you guys ready to hear the rest of the story? Because all we've got is just a setup. The tension's building, guys. Ruth and Naomi, they've got bad things happening. People are dying. Oh no, they have to move. How will the story end? What will happen? Will these characters still love God with all their heart, all their soul, and all their strength? Well, come back again and we'll find out. So, let's talk about it. So for now, love you all. See you next time. Bye.
See ya.